Pogo Books, Turning Points in U.S. History, Women's Suffrage Movement by Veronica B. Wilkins. Chapter 1, Seneca Falls. On July 19, 1848, around 300 women and men met in a church. It was in Seneca Falls, New York. They spoke about women's rights and suffrage. This is the right to vote. At the time, only men could vote. Elizabeth Cady Stanton and Lucretia Mott led the meeting. They wanted a say in the country's laws. But to have that, they needed to vote. So they fought for suffrage. We call these women suffragettes. Many women during this time stayed home. Their job was to care for children. Their husbands worked. Some women like Stanton and Mott were active in politics. They fought against slavery. They learned to speak to crowds. They learned to write well. U.S. slavery ended after the Civil War from 1861 to 1865. Women began using what they learned to fight for suffrage. Many women's clubs formed in the late 1800s. These groups educated women. Some worked to change laws. A ban on alcohol was one. As these groups grew, more women joined suffrage groups too. Chapter 2, Working for Change. Women protested. They marched on foot through the streets. Some rode horses. They held signs. Some decorated cars. They even wore costumes. The first march was in 1910. People watched marches. Newspapers wrote about them. The marches grew. In 1913, around 8,000 women marched in Washington, D.C. In 1915, 40,000 women marched in New York City. Suffragettes campaigned. How? They wrote newspapers. They gave out flyers. They spoke out too. They talked to politicians. They gave speeches. They gave reasons for women's suffrage. What do you think? Susan B. Anthony was a famous suffragette. She talked a man into letting her vote. She was arrested. Would you have done this? Why or why not? Suffragettes campaigned in each state. Why? States could make their own laws. Their work paid off in Wyoming first. The territory gave women the right to vote in 1869. In 1916, the first woman was elected to Congress. Her name was Jeannette Rankin. Take a look. Women first won suffrage in Wyoming. Many states followed. What year could women vote in your state? Chapter 3, Suffrage is Won. World War I, from 1914 through 1918, called many men to war. Women filled the jobs they left behind. This helped suffragettes. How? It showed that women cared for their country just as men did. But there was still work to do. Protests continued. Suffragettes picketed the White House. Many were arrested. Finally, the president helped. Woodrow Wilson asked Congress to change the law. This was on September 30th, 1918. It took nearly 2 years, but the law changed. The 19th Amendment passed on August 18th, 1920. It said women could vote. Did you know President Wilson was not the first man to help? Men were at Seneca Falls. Suffragettes' husbands helped. There was a men's league for women's suffrage. Women fought for suffrage for more than 70 years. Their work changed America forever. Today, women have had the right to vote for about 100 years. Many women work in government too. In 2018, a record was set. The most women ever were elected to Congress. What do you think? Women fought for a voice in politics. What if they hadn't done this? How would it feel if you did not have a voice? Excellent job, readers. The end. And as always, please remember to subscribe. Thank you.